Hi guys, this is gsn.com and I'm here with the Vivo Y70 for a full review. This is one of the few devices that we've tested from Vivo. I only remember the one which had a screen at the back side. It was more experimental. Now, here we have a mid-ranger phone which has a triple camera and also a pretty crisp and bright AMOLED screen. This device is priced at around $300. It was unveiled in October 2020 and is still reasonably fresh. The most surprising thing is that it got the Android 11 update quite fast just after we unboxed it. So let's see what this mid-range device is capable of. And also I should probably mention that the brand Vivo has just debuted in Europe, so they're coming on with a few interesting devices these days. Now the design could be called old school on account of having a teardrop notch here at the top side. At the same time we have quite a bit of a chin at the bottom, and even though this looks like glass, it's actually plastic. So a plastic back, plastic sides and glass at the front, and the color choice here and the whole look of the phone seen from afar reminds me of a Galaxy S20, the basic one, the baby blue one. Now the device is very easy to handle. In some ways it reminds me of my very own personal OnePlus 6T. It's a 7.8mm handset in thickness and it weighs a reasonable 171 grams. So easy to handle, quite comfy buttons here on the side, volume and power. So that's all in a nutshell. This hue is also pretty good looking. There's also the gravity black version. This is called the oxygen blue, and the grip is quite fine. So we're done with the design. I have to remind you once again that it's plastic plus glass at the front side and it's a comfy device. The display you're seeing here seems like a bit of a selling point so far. It's an AMOLED 6.44-inch panel with a Full HD Plus resolution. The bezels are, I would say, reasonably big for nowadays. People may consider them pretty thick. They maybe wanted something slimmer, but let's see what the display can deliver to us when we watch a video. Okay, so let's make it fit the screen. Now, first of all, the teardrop notch doesn't bother us, but there's quite a bit of a chin here, and the AMOLED panel definitely delivers in brightness, vivid colors, wide angles, also pretty solid contrast even in the sunlight. The colors tend to be a bit warmer, that's something I noticed here, and the black is pretty deep. At the same time, the white is very intense on this screen. The pixels have a pentile matrix arrangement, and we also did a brightness check. We measured the brightness with a lux meter and achieved a satisfying 564 lux units. This is solid. It's above the Samsung Galaxy A71, Motorola Edge, and even OnePlus 8. Not bad. At the same time, it's below the Oppo Reno 4 Lite and below the Xiaomi Mi 10 Lite 5G and the Oppo Reno 4 Pro 5G. If you want to tweak your experience, as it usually happens, you're going to use the settings department where you got your display and brightness, and aside from the eye protection and the dark theme, there's a screen color section and you can set it to professional, bright or standard, with a color temperature slider also available to, well, decide which colors you want to make pop. And I think I missed something here. Nope, just a suggestion. You cannot adjust the color temperature with eye protection turned on. Good to know. Now we are satisfied with the display and we move further into the inside of the phone where we find a very well-known CPU, Qualcomm Snapdragon 665 11nm octa-core seen on the Oppo A72, Nokia 5.3 and Motorola Moto G Pro. I am happy to inform you that we have quite a bit of RAM here, 8 GB, not bad at all, and 128 GB of storage. There is also a dedicated microSD card slot. In spite of the CPU not being exactly future-proof, the device doesn't suffer from lag. The pretty clear and clean interface probably also helps with that. So definitely no lag. It can run some low-level or mid-range games, but don't expect to run Call of Duty or PUBG Mobile in a flawless manner though. We also did some benchmarks, so I think it's time to check those out. Okay, so I'm going to start off with Antutu 8. This is Antutu 8. As you can see, we're just above the Poco M3 and the Motorola One Action, and we even surpassed the Samsung Galaxy A51. We stayed below the Oppo Reno 4 Lite and the Galaxy A71, while Geekbench 5, the usual multi-core subtest, were just above the Xiaomi Redmi Note 8T and Motorola One Zoom, also beating the rather famous Xperia 10 Mark II, which should get a follow-up pretty soon. We're below the Moto G9 Power, which by the way we reviewed recently, check it out on our YouTube channel, and below the Poco M3, which is not flattering, to be honest, not flattering. In the GPU department, there is a good old 3D Mark Slingshot Extreme ES 3.1, above Poco M3 by just a bit, and above the Motorola Moto G9 Power and a Galaxy A31. At the same time, below the quite old Galaxy A50, it's about to get something like 2 years old these days. Anyways, below the Galaxy A50, below the Galaxy A51 and the Oppo Reno 4 Lite. I mean, it's typical mid-range performance, but in the mid section, so to say, towards the entry-level department if you're looking at the CPU. Definitely not future-proof, but I'll be honest, I didn't encounter any lag, so there's that aspect to remember. Okay, now when it comes to the benchmarks, we achieved 32.9 degrees Celsius, so there's no overheating. When it comes to games, we achieved 32.3 degrees Celsius, so once again, no overheating. Okay, so I think we can move further towards the battery, which is a 4100 mAh unit with 33 watt charging. It's supposed to offer you 65% battery with a 30-minute charge. Now when it comes to the video playback, here you can see that we achieved a pretty solid result, and it's 16 hours and 30 minutes. This means that we're beating the Xiaomi Redmi Note 9 Pro and also the Oppo A72. We score below the OnePlus Nord and below the Moto G5G as well as the Galaxy A71. In the continuous usage test, we're 13 hours and 6 minutes, it's quite solid, above Samsung Galaxy A41, Motorola Moto G Pro and the Oppo Reno 4 Lite. Still below the Galaxy A50 and the Poco M3 as well as the Oppo A52. Guess what? The charging is quite fast. I mean, 100% is achieved in 57 minutes, and after 30 minutes you're at 62%, even better than what we were promised apparently. So not bad at all, plus some battery extending, adaptive and power saving features. Now when it comes to the audio department, you can see here we have an audio jack and a singular speaker, which we will not cover in landscape mode provided you hold the phone like this, not like this. Okay, so in spite of that, let's go further, and I should also show you that we have here, let's see what we got here. We have a podcast app. I was actually looking for the radio app. On paper we should have it, but not exactly finding it right now. Anyway, getting past that, we have a singular speaker at the bottom, we have an audio jack, and I think it's time to show you the audio playback experience. Now I have to warn you that this is not the loudest phone I've heard in a while, and also it gets a bit too intense at top volume. Something like 80% is more satisfying. The high notes get too intense. Not much bass here. It's definitely no record breaker. It's just fine. It's a fine experience. I would say even forgettable. It does its job, and that's what I can say about it. We measured the power of the volume. It's 87.4 decibels with our acoustic sample test. This beats the Galaxy A41 and Oppo A72. It stays below, for example, the Xperia 10 Mark II and the Redmi Note 8T. In games, it's a less impressive 96.6 decibels. Usually we aim at 100 decibels. It's not the case here. It's above the Redmi Note 9T and above the LG Velvet, below the Poco M3 and Galaxy A71. Now on the camera front, you can definitely see the teardrop notch at the top. It holds a 16 megapixel camera, while at the back side is a familiar triple cam story. The main guest is a 48 megapixel shooter accompanied by a 2 megapixel macro and a 2 megapixel bokeh camera, and here we have a quite generous LED flash plus the promise of 4K 30 frames per second capture. Now the options also include the typical stuff like macro, bokeh, AI, panorama, live photo, pro, even some stickers, and that's about it. Okay, so we have a variety of shots. I think I'm going to start with the daytime ones. Okay, so some things to get out of the way fast. The phone has a tendency to capture a lot of light and even overexpose our shots at times, so it's hungry for light. That's what I perceived here throughout my captures. It always tries to compensate for the sceneries where the light is lacking. Now the details are okay, I would say, with the 48 megapixel camera. There's a bit of overexposure in the vegetation department, so try and remember that. We tested out the zoom, which is not exactly impressive, as you can see. Things get noisy even after getting past 3x. However, the colors are quite okay. Overexposure only seems to happen to vegetation. The blue hues are nice, the sky is well represented, and we have here several more colors. There's a tendency to create better close-up shots. I mean close-up, not macro. With the macro you can struggle a bit to achieve a proper focus distance. Now we move further and get even more colors here. We change scenery and we change town. As you can see, the colors are pretty spot on. The focus is not that great when you're getting really close and trying to activate the macro mode. However, I got the gist of it, and in the end I achieved some pretty solid macro shots. Like these little rocks here, for example, quite a few details. Even though they're very tiny, they're as small as a pea. Okay, more colors and an excellent crisp texture of these flowers, and the way the light falls on them and the differentiation of shades is satisfying. This is my own balcony with a lot of flowers and a lot of colors, and I'm actually happy with what this camera achieved texture wise, detail wise, and even color wise. More shots here, and it's only now towards the end that we achieved the proper macros. This one, for example, for a 2 megapixel camera, it's not that bad. We have an entire sequence here, entire sequence of selfies. First of all, you're going to have to deactivate a lot of filters. They mess with your jaw, with your eyes, they make your face slimmer, they make you more beautiful. So there's a lot to deactivate, keep that in mind. Otherwise the face will not look realistic, it will look a bit weird, especially the eyes are a bit too big and too shiny. Anyways, when I tweaked everything, it looked fine. I don't have enough expression wrinkles on my face, so it needs more expressiveness. That's one thing I would change about it. But other than that, the clarity is there, the focus is pretty okay, differentiation between foreground and background is nice, so not much to object. And I definitely also have some bokeh here, and as you can see, the portrait captures has me all cut up from the backside. The blur is pretty discreet. That's something that I noticed here, and I find it to be pretty important, this discrete blur, which is applied in the portrait mode. Not bad for the selfies, but try to avoid those extra options. And some more shots during the sunlight. The contrast feels too intense, the darker areas are too dark and the brighter areas are too bright, but the colors remain okay. So that's it during the daytime and the selfies. Let's talk about low light, and here we have to go all the way back. Now, low light is a mixed bag. The camera is not very consistent. Some shots are good, I mean good, bad, 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 okay, too well lit, too much light here. Okay, so as I said before, the camera tries to overcompensate for the lack of light by doing too much. This is actually okay, another okay shot, but this one is weird. I know it's a night mode and all, but it gives you too much light. I wish there was a tweak so you can choose how much light the camera captures. I know you can play with the exposure, and that's what you probably should do to avoid the things I'm complaining about here. I mean, in the end, if you get the ideal situation and do not trigger the night mode, you can actually achieve some pretty good shots. This is the regular one. It feels pretty dark. Excuse me. This is the regular one. Feels pretty dark. This is the night mode one. It looks, to be honest, pretty good, but the lights are too intense. So that's everything I had to say about the nighttime capture. I think it's time to go to the videos. We have an app for that, and it's here. We have quite a few videos, I'll admit that, and quite a few stabilization tests. I don't know why, but we just do. So this one here, this is one of the most intense ones because we're actually ascending stairs. I know that on this small screen things tend to look okay. The image is shaky. It's not only shaky when you're walking, it's also shaky when you're panning. I mean, it doesn't flicker and all that, but it definitely doesn't stabilize. And what I said before, well, amplify it by a margin of 2 or even 3. The overexposure is even more intense in this situation. At least the focus is okay. The focus speed and precision is fine when changing from foreground to background. So that's a plus. Okay, and the selfie video, I would say this one is just okay. A bit intense contrast and a bit too exposed. The sky is basically white and it's a big halo behind the subject. And let's see what else we have here. Maybe more colorful environments like this one here. This is actually a moving picture, excuse me. Here we have a beautiful scenery. We're zooming in and the zoom actually shows you how much the stabilization is lacking here. Definitely not a lot of detail, quite a bit of noise, so there's that. We also filmed in 4K, but I'll say it again, it's a pretty underwhelming experience. Here I'm walking around and filming. Don't get me wrong, the stabilization may seem okay because it doesn't flicker, but in the end, it's not that well stabilized. So I promised you 4K. Too white. That's my main complaint. The image is too white. If there was a way to fix exposure, things would be about 50% better for the pictures and videos of this phone. There's a bit of potential here and there. Okay, and when it comes to the low light capture, we have a singular one, which defines the experience. Not great. It's flickery, shaky, noisy, and dark. Definitely not something to post on social media. So while the photos do deliver with minor inconsistencies, the videos need some work. Now, as far as connectivity is concerned, this is a dual SIM phone with a dedicated microSD card slot, and at the same time it has a 4G connectivity, and it also brings fourth Wi-Fi dual band. There's Bluetooth 5.0, and we have an USB-C 2.0 port at the bottom, as well as an audio jack, one microphone at the bottom, and one microphone at the top side. There's no infrared here, it would have been nice. What we do have is GPS, GLONASS, Galileo and BDS, and there's also NFC here, as well as Android Beam, smart metering, OTG and other things like that. I should also mention that the calls were pretty loud and clear, and if you're wondering about the speeds achieved on 4G and Wi-Fi, we have the speed test app here, which is ready to show you the results. We have quite a few tests. The core thing to remember is that on Wi-Fi it's 240 MB/s download maximum and 131 MB/s upload max. On 4G we got up to 122 MB/s downloads and 64 MB/s uploads. To be honest, I've seen better than this on 4G and expected just slightly more on Wi-Fi, but the figures are still pretty decent for gaming and regular downloads. Now the software experience is pretty interesting to the fact that we got Android 11 just before the unboxing that we did. It's Android 11 with something called FunTouch OS on top of it. You can see info about it here and also info about the handset. Android 11 confirmed with some security updates, and as I said before, FunTouch OS 11 on top. It's a pretty bare bones experience, pretty close to the stock experience. If you swipe down, this interface reminds me of the Nokia phones from HMD Global with all this blue. Multitasking is done like this with the recents, and there's also the option to split screen, as you can see here. Now, aside from that, the widgets are all stock, nothing out of the ordinary. Vivo doesn't exaggerate with many pre-installed apps. This is the most important one. It's called iManager. It clears your resources, data usage apps, and it also has some utility tools which are quite useful. For security, we have a fingerprint scanner embedded in the screen right here at the bottom, and also face unlock. And the two of them make a nice combo, although if you cover the face unlock and simply let's actually try and cover it better, and simply rely on the fingerprint scanner, it's not exactly always reliable. It's not as fast and as accurate as I want it to be. I'm talking about the fingerprint scanner, of course. Now the settings are, I would say, pretty interesting because they put a lot of emphasis on gaming, believe it or not, even though it's not a gaming phone. We have a game assistant pop-up, a game sidebar, an esports mode. With all the extra features here, they focus on do not disturb and managing the resources. Sound quality effects, game surround, so quite a few gaming features for a non-gaming phone, screen mistouch prevention, even sort of a picture-in-picture. Nice to see. We have privacy options. Aside from that, digital well-being, parental control, options for system navigation, options for always-on display, and there's also an area here which will let you trigger quite a few gestures. There's the one-handed mode, there's smart split, so there's a lot of features for gestures and gaming. That's to remember here. Plus personalized dynamic effects. I think we covered everything, not much else to see here. We got pre-installed TikTok, Facebook and Instagram, and we're ending it on a gaming note, since apparently we have gaming features. Let's talk about the pros and cons for this Vivo phone. On the pro side, it's a good looking phone which is comfy to use, has a cute backside, a bright screen which is pretty crisp and has vivid colors. The performance is quite okay for day-to-day usage, and I also should mention that the charging is fast. It could be one of the selling points. I have a pretty okay battery life, decent volume for the bottom speaker. We have a pretty solid main camera, not much to object about that. And there's Android 11, even though it's not present on quite a few other high profile phones out there. Those are the pros. I also mention that the interface is stock, doesn't get much extras, and also no bloatware, which is of course always a big plus. And aside from that, the gaming features may matter to you if you really are keen on gaming, even if you're not on a gaming phone. These are the pros. Now on the cons side, the bottom speaker is lacking bass, and the high notes are a bit annoying at the top volume. And I should probably also mention that there's no ultra wide camera, there's no telephoto camera, and well, the macro camera isn't exactly stellar. You're better off taking close-up shots with your main camera. Now, the nighttime photos are inconsistent. There's a tendency to overexpose some pictures and videos, and stabilization was a bit underwhelming. Fingerprint scanner could have been a bit better, and well, that's about it. So those are the pros and cons. In the end, we're left with a $300 phone, which is a mid-range handset, and its core attributes are the screen and the battery. That's what you're going to buy it for, screen and battery, meaning it's a multimedia phone. You're going to consume Netflix on it, YouTube, Facebook, and take some solid selfies. So in the end, it's all about the AMOLED screen, selfies, and battery, plus the charging. And believe it or not, some gaming can be done here with the aid of the special software gaming features. This is from gsno.com. Hope we cleared everything for you. One of the first Vivo phones, the second Vivo phone I ever tested, and we're going to be testing more in the future because Vivo has entered Europe. This is it from us. Bye bye.